Today we are going to do a video on these newer LED rollable matte lights. Hey everyone! So I know a lot of you guys are quite interested in my shooting videos. You're always asking about like equipment and the things that I use. And so a couple months ago, I asked NEEWER to see if they could send me some of their LED flexible rollable mats. This is something that I'm quite excited about. So I know many of you know I shoot everything myself. I do the lighting, I do the shooting, I do all of the editing. And in terms of, like a studio, essentially because I do food videos, the studio is my own kitchen, right? So every time I want to shoot a video, I have to set up the lights, I have to, the camera, the tripod at a very basic minimum. And at the end of the day, everything needs to kind of return back to where it is, because this is my actual kitchen. This is where I cook, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. I fall into a very tricky situation when it comes to shooting in the kitchen, right? Because this is not like gaming or product reviews. I can't just sit at a desk. I don't have like a dedicated space for it. It becomes very tricky and also can be very overwhelming as well when you're having to deal with, cooking. Things are on fire. You have sharp objects like with knives, and then you have to worry about like tripods. Like, is this too big? Is this too small? Is this gonna tip over? Like giant light boxes and umbrellas just like being in your way. And so it is phenomenally tricky to be doing a food show and navigating that space with like photography and food. And so when I saw these kind of rollable LED type things a couple of years ago, I thought, wow, this is going to be such a game changer for me. It's going to be lighter. I'm going to be able to fit it into like tight spaces. This is exactly what I need. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk a little bit about the specs of these LED lights first, just so that you guys know what you're looking at. I'm also going to test these lights in a real world kitchen setting, and I'll show you a really cool kind of setup, like this little hack thing that I am doing currently at the moment. And then afterwards we'll just go outside, we'll talk about kind of like the positives and some of the things that you guys might like or not like outside, and in helping you decide whether you are interested in getting one of these lights. So let's talk a little bit about the specs of the light first. First off, the dimensions are 30 centimeters by 53 centimeters, and that is 11.8 inches by 20.8 inches. So it's not that big, but it's definitely big enough. It reminds me of kind of the size of just, one of the general light panels. So this is an 80 watt LED mat, which is actually pretty bright, 3,800 lux. Sounds like it's not a lot. Like if you guys are into looking at studio lights, I think that the aperture ones, they'll say like 30,000 lux at 1 meter. Well, first off, they are quite powerful lights, but you also have to remember like they have the reflectors in there that make it that much stronger. And I think we'll see it later on in kind of like the real world settings, but these do the job actually quite well in terms of just lighting the scene and lighting what you guys want. So the CRI is 90 plus, and usually the color rendering index, the CRI, tells you how accurately your colors are being portrayed. Usually like we'll see them around like 93 or up, but again, it's something where like if you are editing anyways, and if there's any color differences, you can easily adjust for that when you're editing. Finally, these lights that I got, they were daylight balanced. It actually goes from about 3200, so like tungsten-esque, to 5600. I think I was playing around with it earlier. I don't necessarily see too big of a difference, but for me, that's exactly what I need, is kind of daylight bulbs, just because I'm dealing with food, so I don't need anything too funky. But I think that NEEWER has some new like RGB lights as well, where you can go with like different colors and different temperatures as well. But anyways, for food, usually what you need is just like a very nice kind of daylight kind of a vibe. So, I mean, you guys know the kitchen. It's an okay sized kitchen, I think, to cook in. But when you're talking about like putting in lights and like tripods and everything, it's nearly impossible, because I have this corner where I have all of my like wood and different backdrops and lights and little tripods, and sometimes what I'll do is like I'll take out one of these things and I'll actually fit my camera inside the shelf, because really the perspective, I mean, even with the lens, it's just really it's not wide enough. Okay, so at first I was thinking of actually just taking the mat and then Velcroing the mat itself without the stand at all, because then that way it'll be just so much lighter and it's just so much even easier that way. But I don't know how the Westcott lights or the other lights are, but the NEEWER lights, they have this like crinkly, plasticky, papery kind of material, so it's not like cloth, like exactly as I had thought. So my worry was that if I were to take it on or off like too often, that it might damage the LEDs, because the LEDs are actually like they're right here. And the other reason is, like, if I put it onto the stand, the diffusion mat is actually what is connected to the stand. I can't just Velcro the diffusion sheet right onto this. It only goes onto the stand. So I thought, okay, the diffusion is good just for diffusion's sake, but then also it serves as, I guess, like a little bit of a protector for the LEDs, so that it's not just exposed to the air. And then everything is kept nice and straight, so I'm not worried about maybe the paper bending or the cloth bending and then it I don't know, ruining the LEDs or something. So so now we have both lights up. Just turn it on. 10%. over to adjust. 20, 30, 40, 50, 60. 100. This is full. Okay. Back down. 90, 80, 70, 60, 50, 40, 30, 20, 10. 10 now. Okay. Okay. So some of the positives with this mat first is obviously everything that I've said. It's very light. I actually weighed it on a scale, and just the mat alone, I think this was like 185 grams. So not even a half a pound yet. And I think when you put on the little frames on the outside, maybe totally it would be about a half a pound or so. So it's extremely light and it's extremely thin. And I think why that is particularly important is when you're cooking and you're playing around with lights and messing around with that, things have a tendency to like topple over. Like it could be the wind, it could be like you knocking something over. And if it is a very heavy type of equipment, usually like you're looking at something breaking, and that's going to cost a lot of money. But for these, because they are so light, like obviously you don't want to have them break on the floor or have them fall on the floor, but if they do, because they are so light, you kind of have a feeling that like, you know, I think that they will be okay. So it's quite light. Other things that I really liked about it was because it is rollable, it actually comes in a really nice traveling pack that everything packs up really nicely. And so it becomes really easy, like if you have shoots that are not in your home, on location, outside of your home, you can really easily bring those along, and they are super, super light to carry. And then of course I mentioned about prices. So when you look at, you know, like the big Westcott lights, I think depending on the size, prices go anywhere between, you know, like 500 to 1,000 pounds. If you go kind of like the middle area, I think like Falcon Eyes does some as well, and sometimes I see them around like maybe like 400 pounds or so. These ones came in at just a little over 100 pounds. I think they were 108 pounds on Amazon UK. And I'll put all of the links to the lights down below just so that you guys know which lights I'm talking about. A really great deal for LED lights. And again, I've only had them for about 2 months, so I can't attest to how long they last, but so far it's really good. And when you're a YouTuber, when you're a creator, like naturally you guys don't have, you know, unlimited funds to be spending. So if you can find equipment that does the job and does it well, but for a cheaper price, that is something that you can easily, you know, add to your kit, and that's a good thing to have. Even if it's just like a side light, or you're using that as like in case if the main light doesn't work, like it is good to always have, it is always good to have extra lighting if you have extra money. In the kind of like the negatives that I found with this, you really have to weigh it with the fact that it's at a price point that is extremely affordable, and so always kind of weigh that with the price. First thing is that this lighting kit is extremely dependent on the remote controller. So what I mean by that is in order to adjust for the brightness and the color temperature of these lights, you need the remote controller. There is nothing on this light so that you can adjust for that. So potentially, like if you ever lose this, if you didn't have batteries for this, you are not going to be able to adjust this. So that's a huge one. Following along those lines is this light remembers the last setting of when it was used by a remote controller. So for example, if you were to turn the lights off using the remote controller, so like getting the light to 0%, next time when you turn it on, and let's say you forgot your remote controller or you just didn't have it with you, there is an option to manually turn the light on and off. But if you turn the light on and let's say the light's last setting was at 0% from the remote controller, it's still going to be 0%. It's not going to turn on. And so I could see that being a real problem if you know, again, either didn't have batteries or you lost your controller. You may not be able to turn this back on. I don't know if there's a reset on this mat. It doesn't look like it, so that could potentially be an issue. The next thing is with the remote controller itself. So basically, when you open it up from its package, you have to pair the remote with the lighting mat so that it will respond to one another. From reading the reviews and my own experience, I had a really hard time pairing this with this. Like it really took forever, to the point where I had to call the NEEWER technical people, and they were very nice about it, and they figured it out for me. Essentially, what you have to do is there's a channel 88, which is the universal channel that will control anything that this remote controller can control. And so we had to turn it on to 88, and what they said was maybe that there was a model where you could assign like this light channel 1 and this light channel 2 and be able to adjust different settings on each of them. But with these ones, it was channel 88 was for all, and so if you had two LED panels, essentially both of them need to be on the same setting, because when you control one, you're going to control the other. So for those of you that, you know, might want one light to be at 50% brightness and then the other light to be at, you know, 80% brightness, that is not something that you can do on this, or at least that is what the NEEWER technical folk told me. Maybe they, you know, have changed it along the way, but it's not necessarily a big problem. I mean, you can always put additional diffusion on it, but it gets kind of difficult because of the Velcro. So you'd have to like clip it on or do something like that, but it's totally possible. Other small things that I would say would be like, one, the diffusion mat is quite light. It is quite see-through, so when this shines, sometimes you can actually see the beads of the LED. It doesn't affect the scene that much. And again, if you wanted to put extra diffusion in, you're really just going to have to probably clamp it on. The last thing is, elephant in the room, is that this thing is, originally when I got it, I thought that everything would be a fabric, kind of a fabric-like material, and it would be really easy to, you know, roll in and out. But with this one, and I don't know if it's like it was a price point issue or something like that, but the thing that the LED lights are on is this very crinkly plastic material. It does not really roll out smoothly, but in addition, I'm always worried that it like feels like it could split or the lights could break, and that's probably not the case. It's just that's kind of like what it feels like. It feels like I wouldn't want to like roll it and unroll it too much, because, you know, it may break or something. So yeah, I think that's it for me for these NEEWER lights. If you guys have any questions, let me know down below. I'll do my best to answer all of them. And again, I will put the links to the lights that I have down below so that you guys know exactly what you're talking about. Exactly what I'm talking about. So yeah, let me know what you guys think. I hope you guys all enjoyed this video, and I will see you guys all again next time.